Hi everyone, Kathy here with the Math Collective. Today we are going to be talking about how we can use choral counting to support subtraction with mixed numbers. So as you can see, I've set up a choral count where we're going to be counting backwards by 1/4, starting at 6 3/4. And when I'm starting this with students, what I begin by doing is asking them, how can I represent the 6 3/4? And just really establishing that we're going to need 6 wholes. And we're going to need that extra hole to show the 3/4. And in that 7th hole, we're going to not include the last fourth because that's our 3/4. Whether they're using fraction bar models or circles for fourths, it doesn't really matter. I prefer fraction bars because they're easier to segment once you get into the odd numbers. But whatever representation students are using, as long as the holes are the same size and the pieces are the same size within those holes, works for me, works for them. So we would go ahead and get started, and students would start with 6 3/4, and we would say our expectations with choral counting is that everyone counts together and we don't count faster than I can write. So if I'm still writing 6 3/4, we shouldn't be all the way down 5 counts ahead. And that helps the pacing, and it helps me keep an ear on the group and just to assess where we are with understandings or potential misunderstandings. So I can also ask our mathematicians to go ahead and predict in their minds what the first 3 counts will be. And that just gets them ready and thinking so that when we do start counting, they have an idea of what they're going to say. If your students need it, you can actually model crossing off on the representation if that's helpful to them. Sometimes students need that, sometimes they don't need it. Where it becomes kind of helpful is when we're transitioning to the next whole number. Once we get to 6, they're going to need to break apart the next whole number in order to get 1/4 less, which gets us to 5 3/4. I'm going to continue the count pretty quickly, but your students would be counting these all out loud together. Again, if it's helpful for them, for you to model crossing out, please do so. It really depends on the students whether they need that additional support or not. And I'm going to go all the way down just to 3 holes. And then I would pause and ask students, what do you notice? What do you wonder? So go ahead and take a moment and look at the representation. And I'm just matching the model to match the count. And what do you notice here? Here I'm sharing with you some of the noticings and the big ideas that came out with a group of 5th graders. And you can see that each color represents a different student's idea. And I've annotated within the count, and then I've notated their ideas on the side in the margin. So you can see that students are noticing that as you move down in one column, the number of the fraction is staying the same. You'll also notice that they are keeping track of that interval between each count is decreasing by 1/4. We're noticing that the denominator is always 4. And then some students started to notice that as you move down, the whole number is decreasing by 1 whole. And that's important because that's how the choral count was planned. I intentionally put 4 numbers in each row before I broke it to the next row because there are 4/4 in a whole. And then I knew that you would see that every time we counted 4/4, we would go down 1 whole. Sometimes mathematicians notice that and sometimes they don't, and that's okay. We just really want to give them an opportunity to explore some of those noticings and those wonderings and to start to solidify their understanding. One of the biggest takeaways is that when you get to your whole number, your 6, in order to subtract from it, you do need to break apart that next whole number. So that's really helpful in imagining that transition from 6 to 5 3/4 or from 5 to 4 3/4. And I find this a really engaging, very visual way for them to develop this understanding of how to subtract with mixed numbers. And they feel really empowered and engaged in this kind of conversation around this work, where sometimes it just feels super abstract. So I hope that you try it out. And if you do, let me know how it goes. And I look forward to hearing from you. See you later. Bye.